Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about an extraordinary state of affairs where dozens of federal judges, speaking anonymously to the New York Times, but dozens of federal judges have made known their discontent with the Supreme Court for its shadow docket practice. Now, the judges, at least that the Times reached out to, not everyone returned the call, but many more than would have in normal days. We are just so much not in normal days. And man, does this show it, came and really groused seriously about what the court is doing. And it isn't about the bottom line results. It's about the opacity and just complete cryptic nature of the court's shadow docket. So they do their thing. This is the typical fact pattern. A district court judge hears a challenge to some new aggressive use of executive power by Trump and holds, this looks kind of funky under current law. I'm going to put a hold on it, a temporary hold on it, while I decide what should happen. And the U.S. cries emergency, emergency. It's done it more for this administration than not counting, and also in Trump 1.0 than all the 3 or 4 administrations prior. They just do it again and again. And what they do is they go up to the Court of Appeals and then to the Supreme Court, and they say, this district court put a temporary hold on things. It's all only about ostensibly temporary holds. And I'll get to a moment why that's really a kind of a deceptive way of looking at it. But the Supreme Court has again and again and again, 18 times over the summer alone, pulled the rug out from under district court judges who typically had written 100 plus very, very thoughtful opinions. And here come the Supreme Court to write not even 100 words, to just say there are many orders of exactly this model. The request of the United States given to, and then it depends on what district it comes from, but say given to Judge Gorsuch and to the court is granted. And you're the lower court judge whom this has to go to. Now, first, I think the lower court judges really do feel the Supreme Court is supposed to and institutionally always has had their back. You know, they sometimes sort of put themselves out. If they make flagrant legal mistakes, that's one thing. But generally, to make them look bad, and there have been a couple backs and forths where, in one case, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch slapped around. This is Judge Young in Massachusetts, and really, made it seem that he was being intemperate and not following their orders. And what the judges now are saying is, what orders? You have not given us orders. We don't know what to say. Your job, our job, the soul of the judicial job is to write things out and give reasons. And then we, lower courts, your obedient servants, can apply those reasons. But that is not happening. You're acting, Delphic and cryptic. And I'm going to talk about this a little more on Is It Legal today? Probably I already have by the time you heard this. But just to point out now, it's not, there's no way you're going to tell the Supreme Court they violated the law. But it really is the case if you look at it seriously from the font of the power, Marbury versus Madison and all that, to actually strike down laws or boss around the lower courts. It has everything to do with the stating of reasons. It's really the main difference between the judicial branch, or a main difference. The administration can do things, has done things here because they don't like the guy. Well, that's illegal. But, they don't have to state reasons. There can be different reasons. Not the court. We need to know just what you are doing. And when 36 judges acting anonymously say that the court isn't giving us guidance, that's like a huge crisis of the like I've really sort of never heard. So you have federal court judges calling the court's emergency orders mystical, overly blunt means it goes one way, or, the ones where they sort of slap around the lower courts. A slap in the face to the district courts. Again, imagine they have these very hard constitutional issues, these very aggressive and legally dubious positions by the administration. They really study hard, write hard, put themselves out. And then, 4 weeks later, it's reversed for no good reason. And while nominally, this is a point that Justice Barrett made, actually, it's only temporary, right? All the court has done is said, that temporary hold you put on, we are going to take off. Now you continue to work on the cases. But that's really cold comfort. In fact, it's no comfort, because the way things go with, the timeline of the law versus the timeline of politics, when the court again and again has taken off the hold from a district court, they've really decided the case. They've decided it in sort of two ways. The first way they decided it is in order to take off a hold. That's supposed to be a very high standard, and the poor progressive judges left with nothing to say. I pointed out again and again, you're not really following the rules for this kind of extraordinary action as you do it. But it's supposed to be this very high standard, and one of the factors is whoever we're holding for and reversing is likely to win when we get to the merits. So that's 9 members of a majority of the Supreme Court saying it's going to go the other way. And I haven't seen the case yet in which they've then changed their mind when it's come up. And the other reason it is temporary in form but permanent in effect is it's going to take, we are just now getting to the merits of a lot of cases that were filed back in January. That's because this back and forth has been about temporary holds while they decided. So in other words, in all these cases, the court can just say, we'll freeze this temporarily. Often it'll say until a case comes to us and we can decide it. They want to keep the case to themselves. And that's in effect a year and a half, 2 years. And what are you going to do? You've challenged being fired. You've challenged all this money that's desperately needed not going to you. You've challenged the structure of an agency. And if the court takes away the temporary relief, then it gets too late to unscramble the eggs. You're not going to find out 2 years later you won and be able to go back in and resume work as usual. Maybe you have some kind of money judgment. So one of the things that the judges are saying with very good reason is, you're completely cryptic. It's mystical. It's bewildering. And incredibly demoralizing and troubling. And we are in a political crisis. So I think a lot of judges feel to themselves, like many commentators feel that you are really getting a court that is being elliptical and cryptic for reasons that you can, puzzle over, but they aren't the normal reasons of getting a case. And by the way, on a shadow docket, you don't have the questions presented, you don't have briefs submitted, you don't have the oral argument. You just have the boom holding. Sometimes they add a line or two that can just make it worse. And you're a dutiful district court judge who knows the Supreme Court is, in charge and wants to do what it says. But what's it saying? And when you have this many judges of life tenure, district court judges are, very proud and in their own way powerful. And when you have so many coming out and saying, the court is doing us dirt, it's not telling us what they want us to do. And when we don't do exactly what they say, it's coming up and they're slapping us around, a slap in the face. That really brings home what they call accurately a judicial crisis. And you do have and I've mentioned this before, the real divide in the country so far has been not so much Trump or Republican judges versus democratically appointed judges. It's been lower courts versus higher courts. And the lower courts have really stepped up and again really given serious look, called witnesses, and by and large said that this is not a power that under Article 2, you can't take this away from Congress or even here. we can defer, but I'm sorry, there is no rebellion. There is no insurrection. They do the basic work of judging only to have the rug pulled out from under them. And you can see from these latest stories, they are remarkably disturbed and chagrined with the way with how the court is handling it, that I've never seen a parallel situation which so many people are anonymously or not responding to a New York Times survey. But there you have it. The Supreme Court, very unpopular with lower courts now and seen as just not giving them guidance or loyalty. Bad situation. Whether it'll affect the court or not, we don't know. The court has its own kind of hubris, but it really goes to show that things are roiled and there are deep schisms between institutions of government. And here, even though it's all the judicial branch, between the lower courts who do justice in the first instance and the Supreme Court that seems to undo it again and again and again on its shadow docket. Talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.